Hello, everybody, and welcome to Planet FPL, the world where everything revolves around Fantasy Premier League. My name's Suj.
And my name is James.
It's a Monday, which means it's a game week review pod, review of the weekend. We have only had 9 games, James, so it's important to remember that the FPL week is not over because there's a lot of teams that have a lot of Liverpool coverage.
And as me and Suj don't have Mo Salah, what looks okay at the moment might not in 24 hours.
Well, that's very true, but also we do have triple Liverpool, both of us, which is something
it could get better.
Well.
Yes, absolutely.
So, it's been an eventful weekend of football in so many different ways. Some good, some bad, but all in all, there's a lot for us to cover off, and we will do that as we do each and every episode, James. When we review all of the games, we will try. There was a point. I suppose I want to make a couple of points before we get into it for the listeners.
Go on, Em.
We often try not to speak about stuff before the show. I really try and discourage it because I think when we have a conversation and we do it au naturel, straight into it, it's more fun rather than us having discussed what our opinions are before and then deciding what we're going to say. Like, screw it. So all of the stuff from yesterday, including refereeing and the decisions and the bust up and all of that stuff, we haven't talked about. Manchester United's implosion, we haven't talked about. Like, everything that comes out of here, we haven't spoken about at all. So you're going to get it raw and fresh. And because of the fact that the later games in the game week were a bit more eventful than some of the earlier ones, we might rattle through some of them a bit quicker to make sure that some of these talking points have enough time to cover off.
Yeah, I know people want loads of my opinions on stuff from obviously the Battle of the Bridge Part 2.
I looked at the questions tweet that you put out, and I'd say like 30-40%, and this is yesterday evening, were about that game specifically. Like, the majority, so many of the questions in the moment, and you tweeted quite soon after the game, were
obviously
about that game specifically.
We'll talk about that game last. So if you want to go through the questions afterwards, perhaps I don't mention from the game. I'm sure a lot of it will be, is Perisic going to start on Sunday? Guess what? Spoiler, I got no fucking idea. Spoiler. Okay, how was your game week?
So far, so good. So far, so good. I would say the decision, I'm on 71 points, a game week rank of 644k. And it's taken my overall rank from 3.8 million to inside the top million. So, I mean, any jump like that, can't complain. To get into the top million inside game week 2 and then start my climb is fine. 3 more players to play still as well. Alisson and Trent and Luis Diaz. So looking forward to that as well. No major fires to come out of the weekend in terms of injuries or possible problems that I might need to solve other than Andreas Pereira. But Pereira is one of my hokey cokey of bench fodder. So whatever, like literally whatever.
Yeah,
I'll
you've
just
got
Patterson or Nico Williams.
And Nico Williams, they play each other this week.
Yeah.
So one of them
will go in. Yeah, I'm not bothered about that.
Have you got a preference just on that early on? Patterson versus Williams this week. Everton play Forest at Goodison on Saturday.
I'm going to play Patterson, probably home fixture.
That, despite the way Nico Williams played against your team yesterday, is interesting.
He was good, but Forest overall weren't. But then it depends if who's playing for Everton in terms
anyone
of
else hear them sour grapes.
he was good despite Forest weren't, right? Meaning that if the thing is, Everton haven't got a striker, so I'm kind of torn. Do I go with Nico Williams because Everton haven't got a striker, or do I go with home favoritism for Nathan Patterson? It's a real 50-50. Whichever I pick is going to be the other one. But I suppose the decision of the weekend for me was to sell Sonny for Kevin De Bruyne. I would have started the season with Kevin De Bruyne and made the 1 week decision on just captaining Sonny. So that's a 12-point swing as it stands right now. I'm pretty sure Sonny didn't get booked, did he? He was a 2.0, wasn't he?
Nah, 2.0.
Yeah, so that's a 12-point swing on that decision, which as it stands right now is looking good. He could have had more, like he had a couple of other decent shots. But when I watched the highlights of that, I'm just in love with the outside. Like, I don't even love him. I just love the outside of his boot.
Man.
Does he use the inside of his foot? Because it feels like everything he does with the outside of his boot.
No, but he cuts through, doesn't he? But that's a very unique
It's
goal.
just
Beautiful goal.
skillful. So, I mean, having him sitting there off a 14-pointer when City did well was good. So that decision worked out well. 71 points, I'm happy with. If I finish the week on 85, so let's say I pick up another 14 tonight, I'll be happy with that.
What are you on for the game? It's 71. Fucking hell, fair game, mate.
Yeah, Cancelo, De Bruyne, Haaland, Jesus, Martinelli, Perisic. 4 points, mate. He scored more in the last 2 weeks than Cash, and he's fucking played about 20 minutes.
Yeah. Now, see, this is where you do the narrative thing. You're absolutely right. So I've got 3 points from Matty Cash. Very, very true. I've also got 14 points from Kieran Trippier. True. So, well, which way do you want to sit on it?
Completely. You can't. It's one of them.
So
where's the start? Where's the finish?
He's what 2 better than Matty Cash, but he's down 9 on Trippier.
But then who did I play instead of a Trippier? Where's the other
you've
player?
gone with like
a Nick.
So who did you play? Pereira this week? You ain't got Nico Williams
twice.
Yeah.
So then 5 of him or something.
So then when you add the 2, actually, Perisic and Pereira is behind Trippier and Cash. Yeah. Now, admittedly, I didn't make the Kevin De Bruyne move.
No. But Cash might be injured,
this week.
Which means then suddenly you might be going back for Perisic maybe against Wolves or what have you. So to be seen. But 71, I'm happy with, mate. And I think a double clean sheet for Liverpool today is 12 points straight away and a couple more. So I'm hoping for at least 14 points tonight, which will take me up to 85. And I reckon that will keep me well inside the top 900k, 800k, something like that. Steady. And the main thing is, again, like I mentioned earlier, no fires to put out, which at this time of season is important because it throws plans sideways for managers.
I take it you captained Haaland.
I did, of course. Yeah.
I mean, what a mistake. Not, obviously. I mean, this is where you kind of, you're in the gods, aren't you? So what, 2 weeks in a row for me. And did you captain Sonny game week 1?
Yes.
So 2 weeks in a row, captain arguably the best asset from the 2 highest scoring teams at the weekend and assist in each. That's it. I mean, again, like 0 regrets whatsoever.
Yeah.
I think look, those who've got, say, Haaland and Salah was obviously a more difficult choice. It was straightforward for us, in fairness. But if Salah pops off tonight and you've gone Haaland, like, please don't sit there and regret. Like,
relax.
Ridiculous. Anyway, so I'm on 60, essentially because I didn't make the De Bruyne move, and I came to peace with that decision probably on Thursday-ish or so. So it wasn't like I was thinking about it lastminute.com. I absolutely knew that KDB would do well this weekend and that I didn't expect anything from Sané. It was thinking more, I kept saying it to you, I said it to you this time last week, it was more for me about looking ahead to game week 3, knowing that I may have fires, like Matty Cash is obviously one that's, he's only got cramp, by the way. That's all he is. The yellow flag is, he shouldn't be there. He got cramp. There's no injury. But he's a problem. And the fact that Diego Carlos done his Achilles tendon and he's going to be out for months on end is clearly not good either, because he's looked quite well in Villa's opening to the season. So I knew I was going to have fires if I went, and there was every chance I was going to want to reverse KDB to some back. In hindsight, I wish I'd done it, because the number one reason for not doing it was having the doubts about what I'm doing for captaincy this coming week. Now, as it stands, it's a coin flip for me between Sonny and Jesus. If I had a sold Sonny to KDB, got the points at the weekend, I wouldn't be bringing Sonny back in now. I'd just captain Jesus. So in hindsight, and it's always easy to do the hindsight. In hindsight, I'd wished I'd obviously gone for KDB. What I have to be cautious of doing now is making sure that I make the right decision between, for me, Jesus and Son for captaincy this week, and Haaland, I guess, and make it for the right reasons, not because it's psychological. So what I mean by that is there is a danger of me forcing it to go with Son because it was part of my plan to take on Salah, and also justifying the not going to KDB. So that's like a serious mistake that I could make. If I think Son's the right choice, then fine, go with Son. But if I'm doing it because of justification of what my last decision is, that would be a mistake. And at the moment, probably lean towards captain Jesus, actually.
Yeah, he's got the armband for me. I put the vice on Kulusevski with the home fixture against Wolves, and that's it. But truth be told, next week, based on what we saw this weekend, any Liverpool players surely got to be the best captain asset with Manchester United.
Oh yeah, I mean, I don't have Mo, and unless Luis Diaz was to get injured tonight, if Luis Diaz got injured tonight, I would seriously look at it and wonder if I can get Mo in. And if I did, I'd seriously consider captaining this week. I think I'd rather captain Mo than a Man City player this week. Would be my take on it at the moment, which I mean speaks so much for Manchester United.
2 clean sheets in a row for Newcastle. You can't argue with that. And Manchester United conceded 6 in their first 2. Right?
Yeah, and only 9 against Liverpool last season. And as you well know, Salah hates playing against them, doesn't he? He's going to shit himself, isn't he?
Yeah.
More on that later. So yeah, on 60 returns for me, Trippier 7, Cancelo 11, Martinelli 8, Haaland 10 with a captaincy, Jesus 19. I've got Trent, Robertson, and Luis Diaz to go. So you're looking for an extra 14. I'm probably looking to get where you are. I think I'd want a little bit more from my 3 because I've got the extra potential for the offensive of Robertson versus Alisson. But yeah, okay. I mean, I think rather than looking at rank at the moment, which kind of 2 weeks in is kind of worthwhile, like it's not worth doing. If you're at 5 million, fine, you're at 5 million. If you're in the top 100k, great, you've had a brilliant start and stuff. But it's 2 weeks worth of, you soon make the jumps or you soon make the falls at this stage. I think for me, looking at it, I've kind of got the core of the squad that I'm pretty happy with. Little things like getting Martinelli has shown nothing to be like easy. I spoke about it so much. Going Rashford for the first 2 and then going to Martinelli. I mean, how sick would I have been if I'd done that? And you look at it and go, actually, no, just get the player in rather than giving yourself the extra headache. So the only real kind of headache I've got in there really is Matty Cash. He's going to go. He's probably going to go today, by the way, to someone. I'm not going to take the price drop now. I know that I'm letting him go, and I've got the 2 frees, so I feel like I can take more of a gamble. So I think it's probably 1 for me tonight, which I can get up to 5.5s if I want to, and then make the other one later in the week, which could be very dependent on Tottenham's the early kickoff. Will we get the team? So this time for me, it could be a Saturday morning decision in terms of which player goes with. Like if I get the information that seems to suggest Perisic will start, then yeah, I'm there basically.
Then you don't want to just go cash to Perisic and keep Trippier in there and upgrade elsewhere.
To where?
I don't know. You decide.
To where? So so this is an example case I'm sort of thinking about. So at the moment, I haven't decided yet because, to be honest, my head's still not in the best place from the game yesterday and a few too many beers. But I'm probably thinking of going Emerson Royal tonight from cash, which gives me a starting point of Tottenham coverage. He's obviously not the one that I'd particularly want, but I think he stays in at the moment. I thought he was good again yesterday. I see no reason why he'd come out the team at the moment. It's not to say it can't change, but I think that's a gamble I'm probably happy to take at this moment. That then leaves me sort of a mil in the bank, and then Trippier can go. It's not a big problem. I mean, I could even roll, right? That might even depend on Andreas Pereira's fitness. If Andreas Pereira's past fit, Pereira at home to Brentford sounds better to me than Trippier against Manchester City, which you can play trips, but I'd rather not have a defensive asset going up against Haaland, who's in my team and stuff as well. So then if I got the Tottenham news, Perisic, or if I haven't, I'm million up to Rhys James. So
nice.
Or you come down and go to Nico Williams or Patterson. The timing looks okay for both of them. Arguably Patterson at the moment because of Everton's next 3. But then I only saw the first half of your game yesterday, and Nico Williams is going to get a few returns. I know he's yet to score a Premier League goal, but there are going to be some returns in there.
Mate, I own him in Sky. I got a shot tier out of him.
Yeah.
12-pointer.
Yeah, 2 shots on target in the first half, didn't it?
Yeah. I got a shot tier out of him and a tackle tier and a clean sheet. I mean, he was my star man yesterday.
Mine was Koulibaly, but I'd rather not talk about it. Yeah, so that's where I'm at with team at the moment. Very chilled. I will, as I said, I'll make a decision tonight, almost definitely, but I'll wait till after the Liverpool game. It could be, like I said, if Diaz really doesn't impress, one way of doing it, of course, is -4, Son to Salah, except that it's going to change, move Diaz to 8 or down and just get cash down. It can be done.
Okay. So let's rattle through some of these games, starting with the game that Matty Cash did play in. Aston Villa 2, Everton 1. I didn't see it was a tight one to call, this one, based on Villa's form and what have you. I think had Everton's first goal that was disallowed for offside stood, or not been offside or what have you, then perhaps the momentum might have been different, because it is, when you score a goal and it gets disallowed, I mean, we saw it in our game as well yesterday, momentum could shift and then Villa take the lead straight away after. Suddenly now they're in the ascendancy. But yeah, I'll be honest with you, other than Patterson, I've got no interest in either of these two sides at the moment anyway, so it's just a case of, cool, crack on.
No, I think in nearly every case at the moment, if you're sitting there with Aston Villa players, you're now looking to move it on. Mm-hmm. The Diego Carlos injury is a real blow to anyone you've got.
Ruptured Achilles,
defensively. Now, Cash, as I said, he is holdable, but I think I want to say he's near enough the most sold player at the moment this week. So the price drop is definitely coming. If it's not tonight, it will be like tomorrow. It's definitely coming. Do you want to accept that when you look at what's to come? Palace away, West Ham, Arsenal, Man City. There's grim few fixtures. So I think I'd always looked at kind of game week 4 as kind of the longest kind of possible hold for Villa players when it's Arsenal, Man City afterwards, and Arsenal being away as well. If you've got Watkins, I think you're looking to move elsewhere despite the decent returns at the weekend. Coutinho, you'd be looking to move on. I think Luca Dean, troll of the century. I mean, what's a statistic that cut the statistic? One, it was his first goal for Everton in 3 years. He also scored for Villa last season in the same fixture while playing for Everton. Yeah. And now he scored for Everton in this fixture while playing for Villa. Yeah. I mean, that's godlike, isn't it?
Achievement unlocked.
I had that at the weekend in Gaffer. Dieng, the QPR goalkeeper. Did you see that, Suj?
Yeah,
I've got him in my Gaffer team and he scored. Brilliant, mate. I should just retire there and then. Villa players, I think you're getting rid of. I think it was a massive win for them.
Huge. Because
of the fixtures to come and obviously the really bad game week 1 results. So that takes the pressure off. Now, Everton were a little bit unlucky. Villa had real problems defending set pieces during the game, which I think something's possibly to watch out for. Like you think of like Anderson and Gay this weekend. Palace have got a few aerials that will give them some problems and stuff. And then the week after, they've got yourselves, Suj. So they look like they're vulnerable on set pieces, and there's a couple of teams coming up. So even like that with Cash and Trippier, of course, the attacking, did I say Trippier? I meant Dean, sorry. The attacking threat obviously remains there. You got no confidence in clean sheets with them at the moment at all. So I think in most cases, you're looking to move. Everton, as I mentioned, these 3 fixtures coming up quite interesting. Forest at home, Brentford away, Leeds away as a kind of a group of 3 is not too bad. But the problem is, it always feels this way with Everton. When you actually break down the fixtures and you go, right, Brentford away in 4. I don't really fancy that at the moment. Leeds at Ellen Road, do you fancy them? No, not really at the moment. So the pressure on that Forest game this weekend, they've got to win it, I think.
Yep. And
Forest are obviously going to be in a better frame of mind following the result against yourselves yesterday. From an FPL perspective, Patterson would still remain the only one of interest at the moment. Onana looked quite lively late in the game when he came on, got really advanced. He used 5.0. I don't know if a potential injury to Abdoulaye Doucouré is going to mean that he ends up playing in a more withdrawn position, but he looked a little bit more offensive than what I'd anticipated, but it might also be because they were chasing the game. It might be worth keeping an eye on at that price. I think the real one from Everton at the weekend is this rumoured yesterday, reported by a few journalists, that Chelsea bid for Anthony Gordon.
Yeah, 40 million, I hear.
Which is FPL irrelevant as far as I'm concerned. But it's a potential transfer that just makes no sense at all. I don't know why Chelsea want him as a player. It's not to understate his potential ability. Don't see him getting in the Chelsea team.
No.
And I also don't know if Chelsea are coming in with more than 40 million. I don't know why Everton aren't accepting it, other than if they're thinking, well, it's the first bid, we're not going to accept the first bid that you offer, which would be understandable. Come back with more. But I think Everton are in danger here of going, he's the prize asset. We've just given the number 10. He's the young boy coming through. They've got attacking midfielders and the likes of McNeil's coming, Damari Gray, etc. That really they've got to get a centre forward in the door. And if you can put that 40 million in the bank and then spend it and a little bit more because we're in a new kind of financial year, then that's the best thing for Everton to do is sell, in my opinion. There's a lot of Everton fans probably disagree with that. But
Mate,
I think If that goes up to 50 million and they're still rejecting it, I don't. That he's a good talent. Is he a 50 million pound player? I'm not convinced.
They should just figure out a way of getting a swap deal done for Breuer. I mean, that's a simple, straightforward thing to do. It solves and helps both sides.
There's actually talks about Breuer potentially signing a new contract with Chelsea. He
Ah.
doesn't want to go on loan again, does he? So, but
No,
to be
but
fair,
then make it a swap deal.
Breuer's getting minutes, and he'll look at that front three at Chelsea and think none of them are going to score regularly, so I'll get my chance.
Yeah, fair play.
So he may well stay and hang around there. Actually,
The player that popped off massively, obviously, at the weekend was Jesus. 2 goals, 2 assists, 4-2 home win for Arsenal. I think Arsenal fans are very, excuse me, positive about this result. Even though they conceded 2 goals, I think they saw enough from their team that they will blow a few away this year.
yeah, and Jesus could have had more.
Yeah.
And he obviously had that big miss near the end, which would have been for the hat trick as well. Second goal is could have been anyone, in fairness, in the sense it's a header on the back post. But it's obviously, I feel like they're working on getting him into positions, which didn't really come through in the Palace game, but had in friendlies before that as well. And yeah, he could have got 4 or 5 here. I know representative on the XG, and he was highest for XG in the league at the weekend with like 1.86, I think it was. Yeah, just check that on Understat. So you can say, oh, he's overperformed. I don't know. Like he definitely could have been taking away 20 plus points here from an FPL perspective.
The first finish was, well, he took 19. The first finish was fantastic.
Beautiful. It did take a little bit of a deflection, but yeah, it's beautiful.
Still. Just very different striker to what they've had before with Lacazette, who's a link-up player and drops in, doesn't get inside the box as much and get on the end of stuff. Aubameyang always coming in from the wings or what have you. They've got a real focal striker now. I'm sitting there with my 2 Arsenal assets at the moment in Martinelli, who's 2 in 2 now, and yeah, provides them the ability to play the way they want to play with the press. So I'm big on Arsenal. I mean, Leicester on the other side, they've lost, drew and lost, conceded 2 in both, but they've also scored
conceded
2
and 4.
2 and 4, sorry, but they've scored 2 in both. That's what I meant to say. So they've scored 4 goals in the start of the season. Maddison seems to have started the season in the same way that he finished last season, but their run is a little bit tricky. I mean, they've got Southampton at home this week, which it feels like they really need to get a result, because then they go into Chelsea, which is going to be really difficult. Man United at home.
Stop.
Go on.
Just Chelsea away all day.
Yeah,
you don't need to say anything else.
Man United at home is a funny one, because then it's down to how do you spin the narrative. Like on paper, Leicester actually are probably a better team than Man United
let's say that after Southampton, Leicester's 3 away games in 4, 6, and 8 are Chelsea, Brighton, and Tottenham. So it puts some pressure on them home games. Let's say that, shall we?
That's what I'm saying. Southampton this week feels like a game that they really want to get 3 points in, because otherwise you're going to be in and around that bottom 5 or 6 and bumbling along a bit.
Yeah, it's kind of unclear at the end of the game what may or may not be happening with Wesley Fofana. I've heard conflicting reports of that. There were a few people claiming on Friday night, which proved incorrect, that Fofana wouldn't be involved and had already agreed to join Chelsea. That doesn't seem to be the understanding at the moment. It seems to be Chelsea will come back with more money this week, and the deal may or may not happen. Obviously, losing Fofana would be a big blow. I'm going to steal a line from our friends at Above Average FPL. And it's a great line. And once you hear this, I don't think you're going to be able to unforget it. And it's probably quite relevant for those who are on the goalkeeper double up. Leicester games always start at 1-1. And it goes back to what we'd said a lot last year, right? About them needing to score 3 goals to win a game. And I would have conceded 6 in the first 2. And it's an ongoing problem. And this is despite the fact we've obviously got Fofana back, Evans back, still conceding goals.
Yeah, Tielemans is still there, and Diddy's still there. So the defensive holding midfielders are the same 2 that have been lauded.
I'm not even seeing them getting linked with players. I'm not. You know my opinion. I don't think not always right there. Whether it's between the manager and upstairs, or there's a lot of players kind of feel like they're coming to the end of their Leicester careers. Be it, there's every chance Tielemans is going to leave, isn't he? There's every chance Fofana's going to leave. They lose both of them. What are they? If they don't replace them, they're probably a bottom half team. So I wouldn't be investing in them at the moment. If you've got your 2 keepers, you're obviously going with it at the moment. But I tell you what, if Ward performs again against Southampton like he did against Arsenal, they might come buy a new goalkeeper next week. It's a problem. It's a problem. They're not keeping clean sheets. So if you're on that double up, you just got to bear that in mind. You are absolutely not wrong to be having them, because someone will say, well, that's the difference, James, of why I've got Salah and you've got Son. And I go, okay, yeah, fair enough. You're absolutely right. So when you can combine it, it's definitely a fair argument. But expecting returns off them, I wouldn't. But I would expect them to beat Southampton at the weekend. I expect them to keep a clean sheet. No, I wouldn't back them for a clean sheet in any game at the moment. Arsenal, 3 great fixtures coming up. And you can make a case as 4, you can make a case as 5, you can make a case as 6 and 7. I would, if I was not on 3 Arsenal players, I'd be looking to do that very, very quickly. So
the one that I'm looking at to add to the 2 that I have is Ramsdale in goal. I think he's a decent, safe shout.
You just got the Martinelli and Jesus.
Yeah. And
so
that gives me half. It gives me $500,000.
Who's your keeper?
Alisson. It also frees me up a Liverpool spot potentially, depending on what I want to do. So, yeah, I'm looking at it. I'm wait and see at the moment a little bit.
If you had to go defensive one, where'd you go?
What for Arsenal?
You're looking at Saliba. Do you think he stays in? Are you looking at Gabriel?
He does stay in. I mean, the own goal is unfortunate. It's just one of them things. Sometimes it's own goal, but I think I'd be looking at Gabriel. Just I like the safety and the attacking threat from Gabriel. I'd end up going with him.
I think, to be honest, like Ramsdale was questionable on both goals.
Yeah.
I think the Saliba own goal's unfortunate. I'm not sure Ramsdale's right there positionally or in terms of how he's managing the situation. It's unclear whether he's given information or not. And he shouldn't be getting beat by that Maddison shot at all.
Brighton 0, Newcastle 0. Are Brighton about to do what they always do, which is, I mean, I'm looking at the stats. I didn't really watch the highlights.
Batter teams at home and not win. Yeah.
Yeah, 7 shots on target, 13 shots in total. They dominated possession, but not like, it wasn't like 70%, 56% overall. So if you look at it, they were the better team on paper, but ended up with a 0-0.
It's worth saying this has been a really dodgy fixture for Newcastle in recent years. When they beat them in St James's, I want to say March or February. I think that was the first time they beat Brighton since they came up. So it's always been a dodgy fixture for them. So they'll be well happy to get away with a draw. One of the takeaways from this actually be a player who's not owned by much and won't be. Nothing's going to change based on what I say. But Karu Mitomo came on, looked extremely lively. He's 5.0 in FPL, and his ownership is low enough that that's probably going to drop to 4.9s and 4.8s by the time he might be of interest to us in the future. He's a name to keep an eye on. Brighton should have won the game. Potter spoke afterwards about wanting to get another striker to kind of complement the skill set that Danny Welbeck has. Obviously, despite the fact they were chasing this game, they didn't bring Dennis Undev on. And also, it looks like Neil Maupay is obviously going to Nottingham Forest because Nottingham Forest have decided they want to buy everybody. I feel like Forest are buying players and forgetting while they're doing it. They've actually already bought players anyway.
I'm sure there's a pod in itself in Nottingham Forest's 2022 summer transfer window.
I honestly, I don't think I could list all the signings.
It's mental.
I'd need a while, but yeah, I mean, you've bought Dennis and now you're getting Maupay as well. And I realise the different profiles of players, but how are you suddenly fitting all these players in?
I didn't even know they'd bought Dennis until they mentioned it in the commentary. I was like, have they?
I mean, what football club announces 3 signings over a weekend?
Mad.
You wait till Monday, didn't you? Remo Freuler going from Atalanta, Emmanuel Dennis from Watford, and they signed Sheku Kiate, formerly of Palace, and yourself, Suj, who was available on a free transfer. Brighton should have won this game. It's not a disaster. They have a great run of fixtures after West Ham this weekend. You're obviously going to, I take it you're going Sunday, Suj?
Yeah, I'll go.
So you'll get to see them live. You can report back on what you see, because I think they've got a very, very interesting run game week 4 to 8, where they're very capable of potentially winning 5 games in a row, except for the fact that the 5th game is Crystal Palace. And we already know that they'll batter Palace and fail to beat them, because that's what happens every year as well.
I think a good run starts this week, mate, based on what I've seen. I think they're a better team than we are right now. We're not in great form. So I think, Brighton I've got eyes on. But I don't know where
West Ham away is not a fixture that's going to make you want to jump on Brighton FPL
No,
assets,
I get it. But when we get to the end of the week, I think a lot depends on what I see on Thursday from West Ham, how much they rotate and whether we can get a result. But I'd be tipping right now Brighton to beat us, put it that way.
I think those who've got the likes of Sanchez, Lewis, Duncan at the moment will be really pleased with the one clean sheet from the first two. I mean, Sanchez is 4 points, and I presume he was just a 6 on Saturday. Must have been just a 6, I think. Yeah. So 5-point average from the first two. That's great if you've gone with him. After West Ham looks like better fixtures as well. So Sanchez owners be really pleased at the moment. I think offensively, you need to keep an eye on them, but there's nothing that would come under consideration for me at the moment. Trossard's just a little bit too expensive at 6.5. I think similar applies to Welbeck, same price. Mitoma, you're not jumping on. Solly March is always a player worth keeping an eye on. 5 million, he's probably the one to watch, I'd say. But buy him, nah, no consideration. Newcastle, we're obviously not buying ahead of Manchester City. It's probably more a case of people keeping, because those who've gone with the likes of Kieran Trippier or Callum Wilson, or Miguel Almiron, Alan St. Maximin start the season are probably having doubts, knowing that it's Man City and Liverpool are 2 of the next 3. The one in the middle is Wolves away. So Trippier is Trippier, I would say, is expendable for me, but not I have to get rid.
Yeah.
I wouldn't, in all honesty, if Pereira's fit, I would pick him over him.
For the City and Liverpool game, they've got good fixtures straight after that. But at the moment, you can sell him and probably buy him back at the same price. So it doesn't necessarily make sense maybe to move him on. But yeah, the next 3 being City, Liverpool for Newcastle means they're a little bit off the table. And Man City are the ones that travel to the St James's Park stadium on the weekend. And Man City 4, Bournemouth 0. It's what we both predicted. I love how Gundo scores first, and the Twitter narrative is, we tipped up Gundo as potentially the one. Yet by the end of the game, Foden's the one that's come away with a goal and assist. De Bruyne's come away with a goal and an assist. And
you noticed I got that retweeting quick. Someone said, they tipped him up.
And it's like,
I retweeted it quick.
It's right. It's right to say that Gundo is an option, but they're all options. And the other thing with Haaland, like I was listening on the radio this morning, they're spinning the narrative. He only had 8 touches. I'm like, a player had 8 touches and still managed to get an assist as one of those 8 touches.
Oh, well, it gets better. It gets better when I tell you that
2 of those were kickoffs.
Well,
one of them was a kickoff.
No, he completed 2 passes in the game.
Yeah,
and one of them was the kickoff, and the other one, his only completed pass in the game was his assist for Gundogan.
And we've all seen the miss where Foden shot instead of squaring it into an open goal. Yeah. And if he scores that, suddenly this whole conversation is not even happening. My take on it is exactly what you said. He only had 2 touches and 1 was an assist. But we said that after the West Ham game. My point was, he's not going to be involved in the game, but he only needs to be involved for the microseconds that he needs to be involved. And that involves putting the ball in the back of the net. That's it. So what relevance do these stats even have?
Yeah, different day. Exactly what you said. Foden squares it, which I think even 9 times out of 10, Phil Foden squares that. Never mind I just think normally Foden pass, not one of them you go, he was free. Like, because it's City as well, it will normally get past. He didn't. Even Foden's goal, where the keeper gets a bit of a block on it, it's the same thing. If the keeper blocks it any differently, he's there on the line, ready to put it in. So he's always going to be in and around it, around the box. I think as we saw in the game against you, where it gets really tight and narrow, they'll fling a few crosses in for him stuff as well. I would not look at that data at the weekend and be worried. I mean, if City lost 2-0 and his involvement is completely none, then it's a problem. The case to be against would be people saying, well, because he's hugging the kind of the shoulder of the furthest, the deepest defender all the time, that it is giving more space to the likes of De Bruyne and Gundogan approaching that area, which makes them more interesting. There is a case to say that. City lined up differently to how they did against yourselves, despite, was it the same 11? I mean, it was the same 11.
Mahrez replaced Grealish, so obviously Foden went to the other side, right to the left.
So what's interesting with that is obviously we had the 2 fullbacks both played inverted. We had this 2-3-5 for Manchester City, which by the way didn't particularly unfold for Arsenal against Leicester, it's worth saying. City didn't do that in this game. It became very much a 2 and a 2. So Walker came inside, sat next to Rodri. Cancelo went and played like a left winger. which is more what you want from Cancelo.
His heat map was a joke.
Yeah. But again, it's not to say that they won't change that back against Newcastle, or they might do the same thing. I think in relation to Gundogan, it's really worth watching the Bernardo Silva situation, where clearly he wants to go. City are telling Barcelona it's 100 million euros or piss off, which feels like a lot, and Barcelona can't afford it, but I wouldn't be surprised if they pay it.
This is it, isn't it?
So, but I think if City did let Bernardo go, I think they would go for someone else. So they might, for example, if Bernardo did go, I wouldn't be surprised if like suddenly bang, they're in for someone like Tielemans to be competitive with, say, Gundogan for that position, for example. And you get Phillips would probably integrate into the team even more. So they got options. They're not sure unless they have bad injuries. I'd have no concern on Haaland's touches. Yes, in hindsight, we should have gone and brought Kevin De Bruyne. Bournemouth, no concerns. Wipe it off. Another couple of difficult games. They got the bonus of the win against Villa, which was their most important result of their first four. If they can pick anything up against Arsenal at the weekend, it will be a bonus. Jesus has to be a captaincy option.
Yeah,
it changed a little bit as well that Lerma played central of the back three, as opposed to he played on the right against Villa. I don't know if that was a thinking in terms of a one-on-one physical matchup against Haaland potentially, but they weren't helped by some injuries and some COVID issues coming into this either. Like Dominic Solanke missed out as well. As soon as I saw that, you're thinking this is a lot City clean sheet here. As soon as you saw the teams.
Did we go on FPL Juice last week and say just poo-poo Rodrigo? I'm pretty sure we did.
No, that was you.
That was not me, mate. That was not me.
No, that was me. I'll
you know that shit's going to come back and bite you. But Southampton 2, Leeds 2. I predicted a 0-0. So fair play that there was goals in this game. Rodrigo pops up with 2 just after we were saying he's not an option. We don't even know if he's a striker. But fair play, 6.2%.
And we still don't, because obviously Brentford went off in the first half. So obviously Rodrigo did go and play there. Originally, Dan James came on and went and played there, but in the second half, Rodrigo went right up top. Lovely finish for the first goal. The second goal, he obviously heads it in from a yard, a little bit like Jesus' second goal for Arsenal. That could be any player, really, in that kind of situation. But he's read it well. I think a lot of players would have just left it and not risked the possibility that he might have been offside. But he's got his 2 goals. Great. Thing is, Bamford's not injured. This is the biggest takeaway. So Jesse Marsh basically said if it was later in the season than kind of like a more important game, he would have left him on. It was so early in the season. He's obviously had issues. He reported that he felt a bit uncomfortable, so they just took him off straight away. So he's fit. He's available for selection against Chelsea on Sunday. Whether they'll start him, I guess they might begin to take the step and go, well, maybe we need to be cautious and play him 1 in 2 or something like that. You've also still got Sinistera to come back into this setup. Never mind him being, is he going to play up front, Rodrigo? I don't know if he's in Leeds' best team still. He's the honest reality. And I feel like every time in the past, we've looked at him and gone, yeah, tell you what, if he plays there, and he is, if he plays up front, he's OOP. Of course, he's a great option if he was to play there. But I feel like every time in the past where we've considered him, he's gone a bit cold. His second season last year was poor, really, when we expected him. This time last year, I was predicting that he would get Bamford's place in the team and take him out. Bamford's missed the whole season, basically, and he still hasn't locked it down. So I'd be cautious of that. Plus, he's got Chelsea this week. You ain't buying him this week.
Not looking at
Sorry. You're not. Those who've got great, crack on.
The ones that were on the fringes for Leeds that people were looking at, like Christensen and Aronson, so far still haven't returned. And like you said, with Chelsea on the horizon, off the table at the moment.
They've got games 5 to 7. They've got Everton at home in 5, Forest at home in 7. And they've got Brentford away in the middle of that, which is obviously a fixture they won at the end of last season as well. Now, if we get information in the next 2 that suggests Rodrigo's going to stay in the team and up front, then yeah, I'm very interested in 2 weeks' time. I'm not interested with Chelsea and Brighton, the next 2 fixtures.
Anything from Southampton to your fancy?
Brighton's also a real bogey for Leeds as well, by the way. No, I think it was a really big result for them. And it's worth saying a little bit like Brentford at Leicester last week.
That says something. A draw at home to Leeds is a really big result for them.
It is a big result because
they could have lost, right? Exactly that.
And then you at least leave with the positive feeling little bit like with Tottenham yesterday, right? Tottenham should have got beat yesterday, but you leave with a positive feeling that it feels like a win because of you wouldn't have taken the draw pre-game, but because you're 2-0 down, you go home happy if you're Southampton. The fixtures coming up are tough, really. But having said that, you look at it, Leicester away, United at home, there's goals in
It's a
those
good
two
time to play
fixtures for
those two teams,
Southampton.
I think.
I would agree with that. So maybe it's not as bad as it looks. The two goals were great. I mean, Aribo's goal, you should go back and slow it down and watch it back, because although he takes his time to beat Meslier, Meslier sits down and he still nutmegs him. It's quite remarkable. And the equaliser is one of the best goals you'll see this season, because the assist from Sekumaru just come on when they changed system. That's what I was going to say in comparison to Brentford. Although Brentford did it the other way around, where they went to 3 at the back at Leicester. Southampton abandoned the 3 at the back, went to 4-2-2-2, which is more commonly what we do associate them with Hassan Hootel over the recent years. Mara's assist for Kyle Walker-Peters is perfect. And Walker-Peters scores in literally the only place he can score, because Meslier shuts the goal down really well, actually, from the keeper's perspective. And Walker-Peters literally puts it the only place he can put it. It's an absolutely brilliant goal. For Leeds, disappointing flip. Probably would have taken the draw before the game. Would have been delighted to get 4 points in the first two, but probably feel a little bit disappointed that they're not on 6 at the moment. But I think it's a really positive start for them. Really positive. Couple of difficult games coming up, then a nicer run of fixtures. What I've seen from the first two would make me feel like they can pull away from being in trouble this year, where I don't feel that yet with Southampton.
Wolves 0, Fulham 0. Two other teams that we might have considered would be in and around it. It sounds like a whoppingly exciting game in terms of 0-0. But Mitrovic could have been on the score sheet again had he not missed the penalty. Or so I'll say the penalty, depends how you want to look at it. I was not looking at any Wolves players. How many people? Not looking at any Fulham players.
You know how you get knee-jerky in this game, right? Or people do. How many people do you think watched Mitrovic against Liverpool, bought him, and then watched him miss a penalty against Wolves and have already race transferred him out? It's absolute certain to score against Brentford at the weekend.
Yeah.
You know how this game works.
Net transfers in 559,000 was it?
What, for last week?
Yeah.
Yeah, but look how many people have already sold him this week, Suj.
1.5 million.
No, 1.5 million have not sold him this week, mate.
Is that not what it says? SB.
No,
What's SB?
It's about 100,000 or so.
Is it?
Yeah. It's not that many.
Yeah. Sorry, my bad.
Decent point for Fulham. I fancy them to get one. I'm not aware of the Pereira injury status at the moment, of if there's a problem there or not, but I think it needs a washing brief. The strong advice, by the way, would be not to move from Andreas Pereira to Josh Da Silva if that's what you're considering doing at the moment. There's nothing wrong with buying Da Silva. I just would not be rushing to bin Pereira to do so. Is that your biggest problem in your... If you're on wildcard, yeah, fine, fair enough. But is that what you're going to spend a transfer on at the moment? Pereira is still, in my opinion, the better asset of the two, as long as he's fit, obviously. Another good performance from a few at the back who are probably worried for their place. So Rodak, Teti, Tim Ream again, all seem like they played really well. So may hold on to their places at the moment, despite competition. For Wolves, a familiar story of playing okay, creating a number of chances, never looking like they're going to score. Wash and repeat with them. They are, I think, going to be better to watch. I think it possibly makes them more open for things like what's to come this weekend at Tottenham. I fancy Sonny, certainly in a draw against, say, Johnny, for example. Although Nelson Semedo may come into the team, and I think he's very suspect as well. I think Kulusevski will give Nori problems in that game as well. They are a sort of team that should be concerned, I think, because they've got these fixtures. The reality is Leeds and Fulham's decent first two. You've got 1 point. You're going to Tottenham next. You're probably not expecting anything. Let's say they get beat. 1 point from 3, a decent opening 3. Then Newcastle come. It's not that easy. Then they go to Bournemouth away, Southampton at home. Then they've got a really bad run. So Wolves, from an FPL perspective, zero interest. I would be more interested in trying to break my team to get Mitrovic at the moment, despite penalty miss. But realistically, neither particularly on agenda at the moment for me. Fulham have got a tough run themselves after Brentford at the weekend.
Brentford is a difficult game in itself, as they proved for the weekend. I mean, I went round to my to see my in-laws. We were chilling, and my father-in-law was like, "We'll go down there's a pub that serves some food, like 5-minute walk, 2-minute walk from his house. So yeah, cool. And it was 1-0 when we decided to leave the house. I thought, okay, fair play. We did think that Brentford were going to give Manchester United a tough game. You had the cojones to call it and say they were going to win. I sat on the fence with 1-1, thinking again that they're going to give them a tough game. By the time I got to the pub, it was 2-0. And within 10 minutes of sitting down before we'd even ordered food, it was 4-0. I was like, it's one of those where I'm like, am I seeing what I'm believing?
It was like even my wife said, because she wasn't particularly watching it, but it was on. Even she was like, "What's going on?"
It's absolute. But you think logically, Brentford, Manchester United, all this big club are a bigger club than Brentford. Understood. But Brentford are a better team than Manchester United right now. So why should we be surprised that the better team beat the team that are inferior?
I'm not surprised, because I told you that I thought Brentford would beat them.
And the manner with which they did it says everything. I mean, that stat that Ten Hag obviously got them in because of that 8.5 miles extra run by Brentford. No surprise. The way that Lisandro Martinez was bullied.
I don't know if that's going to have a positive impact on anyone when they've clearly got a mentality issue within that squad. So just making them feel like it's a chore to come into work, I don't think is going to help. Ronaldo, okay, fine. You've taught him a lesson. They should have run more yesterday. But there's every chance he's just going to get more resentment out of them.
Well, that's the thing is, though, that's a symptom of that. That's the problem. Like, if I've underperformed and I get told, I'll take it on the chin and do better. Not moan at being told that I've underperformed. I need to improve my performance. Ronaldo, there's a lot of talk that his attitude sucks. His body language is hideous. His body language is just...
He's not the only one, by the way.
No, he's not. But he's obviously a problem child at the moment that gets focused on.
Well, I think he's a negative impact on a lot of his teammates because they look up to him.
Transfer that he wants to move. I look at it and you see when Sancho gets subbed off, and I bet he's thinking, like, what has happened in that transfer? What has he done to his career by making a transfer?
Shy. I mean, he could have taken off any one of them.
Shy, because we've seen him perform at Borussia Dortmund, right? Where his career should have gone. It was a mess. Like, we've got to give credit to Brentford because they worked for it. We go after these. We put pressure on. We lead from the front. You saw it with the second goal. Straight up, not the second goal, second goal, which was Jansen's goal.
Second
goal, and they're on it. Sloppy pass, take it, done. But even Bomo's goal, I just bullied the guy. They deserved it.
Oh, there was a lot of bullying going on that football pitch, and all of it fair, by the way.
Yeah.
We have to talk about Brentford first, because I think I could spend an hour on Manchester United, and in hindsight, I probably went a bit easy on them last week, and I'm not going to do that this week. So Brentford obviously went with the back three, which served them well later in the game against Leicester the week before, where they got back into it. So, I mean, actually, they're 6-0, if you will, since they changed the system. Leicester away and United at home. So this will probably stick for a while. There's a few, I'd say, unheralded performances from Brentford players that were outstanding at the weekend. Aaron Hickey, right wing back, what a super talent he looks. Really good.
And his tackle on Ronaldo.
Really good. Mads Roslev played right-sided centre-back, faultless. You wouldn't have even known he played. Brilliant. The guys in midfield, great. The pressure and the energy of Jensen, really good. The front two, absolutely dynamite. They tore them apart all over the place, down the channels and through the middle. Really good performance from them. They now come into this long run of fixtures where between now and playing Manchester City away in the final game before the unlimited transfers, they have Arsenal at home and Chelsea at home are their only games against last year's top 7, I believe, between now and game week 15. They don't even play yourselves, I don't think, Suj. Their hardest away game on paper is Newcastle in game week 10. They have a brilliant run of fixtures. I would be amazed if Tom Med doesn't have 3 Brentford players in his squad for the next 13, 14 game weeks. I'm sure that he will. David Raya is very, very interesting in goal. And I think that's the one. I think if you do want one of the defensive ones, i.e. you're in a position where you've got your goalkeeper and you're quite happy. Like if you've got Sanchez, you probably don't want to move to Raya. Completely understandable. Then I think Rico Henry would be the one to look at. And obviously in this system, he's highly likely to stay as the left wing back. So it's worth the saving versus Hickey, in my opinion. Joshua Silva is obviously really good at 4.5. I've heard him referenced as a trap over the last 24 hours or so. I've never known a 4.5 million midfielder to be a trap, because reality is you're going to bench him most weeks anyway.
4.6.
And I don't think...
Just to be clear, you've got to say he's 4.6.
He's 4.6 now. There's no such thing as 4.6 midfielder trap, honestly.
Yeah.
The fixtures are good. Is he guaranteed starter? Nope. Even despite that, honestly, they're going to be so careful with him, to the extent... What I mean by that is, do I think he plays at Fulham at the weekend? Yeah, most likely. But then with Everton to come in game week 4, and then the midweek fixture against Palace, and then the weekend fixture against Leeds, I'd bet money he won't start all 3 of them, because he's going to take care of him. This is what I mean by that. And this will obviously impact a lot of players in the league as a whole in that period between game week 4 and 6, where for clubs they've obviously got... Many of them will have 3 games in 7 days, for example. So is he now going to play every week? No. He's definitely worth the saving versus Jensen, who he had 1 attacking return last season or something. He's not worth the 5 million or so. And Bumo and Tony, depending on where you're at, I think price wise, are both really interesting options. One of the players that did speak up and juice was Tony, wasn't it, Suj? Who I think with this run of fixtures is good, he's lively, and Bumo has got the favouritism to play with him at the moment. All I'd say is, if they're going to stay with that, with 2 up front, somewhere within this system, they're going to want to get Visser some minutes. Damsgaard is obviously going to come into the squad as well. Keane, Lewis, Potter. I think quite often Mbumo will be the one who makes way quite a lot earlier in games. But at 6 million, he's decent value. He took the goal absolutely brilliantly. Brilliant result for them. Right, get the popcorn out. So David De Gea, I think, has 4 major faults as a goalkeeper. And I don't think I've ever seen this before in a game of football where each goal scored highlighted his faults. So the first goal, he's regressed alarmingly in terms of his shot stopping. Reality is, if he saves that, we might be talking very differently this morning. I mean, that's unacceptable. There isn't a goalkeeper in this league you think's not going to save that.
Didn't get his body behind it. It's stupid.
He's tried to scoop it with his hands.
Yeah, it's weird.
And yeah, even that. So it's almost like he's already thinking about the next thing he's going to do. Yeah. But his body shape's completely incorrect to be doing that, because it's on the floor. So you have to get your body behind it. It's bizarre. And because that can happen, of course, where, you know, maybe you got slippery fingers, whatever, but your body's there to protect in case that happens, right? The second goal, distribution from the back. So the pass to Christian Eriksen is so bad because of what's happening around. Christian Eriksen has literally only one other option than what he tried to do, which was to try and play it out to, I think it was to Maguire, who'd pulled out to the right-hand touchline. The only other option that Christian Eriksen actually had in that moment was to smash the ball back over his own crossbar, and I'm not joking, because he couldn't even pass the ball back to De Gea. So that the awareness of, okay, you're getting told to play out. What have I said to you about Eriksen in the past? Actually, he's not good back to goal. Don't put him under that pressure, because he doesn't like it. Christian Eriksen needs to see and feel the game. So when you're putting him in that pressure, 18 yards from your goal, and if he loses the ball there with someone literally, whereas De Gea makes the pass, you can see Jensen's like 2 yards off him. It's not like Jensen's got to make a 15-yard sprint to get there. He's there with him already. What are you doing? And because Tony's pressured De Gea, Eriksen can do nothing. He's just left out to be completely slaughtered. The third goal, he's got no command of his area. It's poor. So the ball goes over his head twice. He's nowhere near it. I mean, Martinez is ridiculous on that particular goal, but we'll come on to that. And the fourth goal, we can't sweep either. I think at that moment, and Tony's pass is absolutely brilliant. It was beautifully finished by Mbumo. But I think at that point, as the ball's dropping on the half volley, I genuinely believe an Alisson or an Edison or even a Hugo Lloris are sprinting outside their area. So the ball gets smashed from Jensen, who inside his own area, because it was from a United corner or certainly a high attack. Brilliant ball from Jensen over the top to Tony. Maguire obviously got caught out where Tony had run over the back of him. So Maguire's positioning was like 30 yards from Brentford's goal. If you're going to be that high as a team, De Gea should be miles off his line. Where is he? He's nowhere near it. So the ball comes to Tony, and I honestly think even at that point, top goalkeepers be sprinting out because they will sense Tony's playing this on a half volley. It's going to be a difficult pass.
Yeah.
And I honestly think some keepers will get there. At the point that Mbeumo shoots and scores, De Gea is standing there flat-footed on his 6-yard line.
Mm-hmm.
No involvement. And he can't have any involvement. There's nothing he can do. It's not to say he should have saved it. He can't. He's out of the game. So his faults as a goalkeeper, massive problem. Maguire's gone, can only play in a back three. Martinez is going to get absolutely bullied every single week if he plays in that position. So I think like Arsenal were looking to buy him to play him similarly to how they're playing Zinchenko, for example. Didn't have the intention to play him at centre-back or use him as a holding midfield role, or you've wasted your money. This league is way too brutal, unfortunately. And I know it's harsh, but even Thomas Frank said it. He said, of course. And I said it to you on the podcast on Friday. They're going to smash the ball at him. And Tony's going to beat him in the air all game long. It's obvious. Why wouldn't you do it? Every team that they're coming up against would do it. I would think, for example, if Liverpool think that Martinez will play against Liverpool, and he probably won't, Núñez should play. Don't have Firmino dropping. I have Núñez go straight against him all game long. You kill him. And there's several more games further on where you could make that case that other teams will do similar and stuff. Fullbacks, not good enough. Luke Shaw's regressed alarmingly. Dalot is massively overrated. For me, I know United fans aren't big on Aaron Wan-Bissaka anymore, but I think they'll have to go very defensive against Liverpool, and they should probably play Wan-Bissaka in that particular fixture. Midfield's wank. They haven't bought a good midfielder since... Well, in fact, have they even bought a midfielder since Fred?
No. They buy players that sell shirts, James.
They haven't had a good player since Michael Carrick played there.
I was going to say he's probably the last one I can remember that's any good.
Now, listen, there's every chance they'll get Frankie de Jong before this window closes. But if Chelsea want him, he'll go to Chelsea.
Not every chance. There's 50-50, I'd say, because I think he's more likely to go to Chelsea than he is to... It's not even 50-50. I think he's more likely to go to Chelsea than he is.
If Chelsea want him, yeah, probably. So there's no guarantee that they're going to fix that situation. It has to be fixed. Because being serious, like these guys like Fred and McTominay right now wouldn't get into half these teams in the Premier League. Bruno Fernandes goes into business by himself. I've spoken about this a number of times. I think he's actually been poor for United for a long time. Sancho and Rashford need to rocket up their fucking arse. Just not doing it, not performing. It seems to have lost all individual confidence in their own ability, which we know that both of those players have. And I've spoken about it a number of times. United with Ronaldo, it just doesn't work. They are the easiest team in this league to play against. That does not make them the worst team in this league because they have incredible individual talent at the top end. If Fernandes, Sancho, Rashford, Ronaldo, Martial on their given day, Ronaldo beat Tottenham in March on his own, for example, right? So the individual talent will mean that they'll still do pretty well. But right now, they are miles off the top five. And they are more in competition right now with the likes of West Ham, Newcastle, Leicester, in terms of what they're going to do with their season, unless they dramatically change that in the next few weeks. And manager, 3 changes at halftime, played exactly the same system. The only thing literally was different was that Brentford couldn't smash it up to Tony because Varane was there instead of Martinez. They did nothing in that second half to try and chase it properly. Ronaldo had a couple of half headers early in the second half, but all through the second half looked more likely it was going to go 5-0 than 4-1.
That's what I was going to
say. Pathetic. Yeah. And Ten Hag, unfortunately, he's already getting spun by the media. And listening to him speak, I actually felt really sorry for him after the game because it was clear that they didn't obviously implement what he wanted them to do. But I think that's a really bad sign. Jack Pitt-Brooke, who's one of the writers for The Athletic, he's kind of Tottenham representative, made a brilliant comment at the weekend, and I thought it was so true. He said, basically, Manchester United have hit year 3 of Mourinho management, but 2 games into a new manager. You know, like when Mourinho gets to fall off in year 3. United have already hit it with Ten Hag under 2 games. If they get beat by Liverpool...
What if? Of course they're going to get beat.
Which they probably will. There's no guarantee, right? Because the atmosphere, etc. And I know there's protests planned at Old Trafford and stuff. And there's people thinking the game might get called off. My understanding is more a case of they're looking at a walkout and stuff, right? I think the police and stuff are going to be very ready, considering what obviously happened a couple of years ago with that fixture as well. But at the end of the day, no United fan's going to want to lose to Liverpool. So you are going to get a mixed reaction in terms of some are going to, unless it goes badly sideways early. Like if they're 3-0 down after 20 minutes, yeah, then there's going to be trouble. But otherwise, United fans are not going to want to lose to Liverpool. Okay, so let's say they put up a fight. We had this a few years ago where they were in a really bad state and they played a back 5. They played 5-3-2. They played Rashford, and I want to say Martial, but it might have been someone else. They played them as split forwards. That's how I think they should play against Liverpool on Monday night. And Liverpool at the time had won like the first 9 or 10 games in a row. But actually, they decided to stop Liverpool winning in the first half of the season when Liverpool won the league. What's that?
Was it 3-0 or something that game?
No, that game finished 1-1.
Right.
Adam Lallana equalised late on. Marcus Rashford scored for United in the first half. So look, it's a big game occasion. Right now, it's almost impossible to foresee Liverpool not going there and dominating them. But also Liverpool, let's see what we see tonight. Weren't great themselves at Fulham last week, right? So they're not in perfect condition either. But should they get walloped again, which is very conceivable, they then go to Southampton in game week 4. Now, if they lose that, my honest opinion is they'll sack him. I think it'd be over with this quickly. Frank de Boer, Mark II. Why is it going to be any different? Frank de Boer came into Crystal Palace and it was, we're going to revolutionise the way we play football, etc., etc. 4 games in, they've gone, hang on, this ain't working. And you can already see it blowing up with Ten Hag and players in that dressing room. So I honestly think, if you said to me now, United lose the next 2, I think they'll sack him.
Mad. No one's buying United unless you're in Sky Fantasy Football and you want to buy Rashford. Isn't that right, James?
It's gone. Sold him yesterday.
I was going to ask you in Sky on Wednesday. You sold him, right? Yes.
It was a punt for 2 games and clearly that did not work. Right? So, Manchester United players in FPL. I think there was about 8 Man United players dropped in price over the weekend. I mean, Liverpool next as well. I don't know how whatever you've got, go. If you're sitting there with Rashford and you're looking at Martinelli, I don't know how you don't make that transfer right now, to be totally honest. I cannot give you any reason not to make that transfer. If you've gone with Dalot, are there better options at the same price? Yeah. That would be one where it's maybe not a priority and you keep, for example. Okay, fine. If you've gambled on Sancho, goes as far as I'm concerned. Even that, Sancho down to Martinelli, move the money. You might have both, but then you've got people like Gundogan. Come down to one of the 4.5s, get Nunes in up front. There's loads of shit you can do. Just get rid of it, I think, to be honest. They're in a really, really bad way. I think, as I said, reassess now. They're not in competition with the top 5. They're in competition with the others for 6th, unless something massively changes in the next couple of weeks. And I genuinely think the manager is already under serious threat, because it's a lot of this on the 2 games. Tactical stuff is on him as well, actually.
Nottingham Forest 1, West Ham 0. First win in the Premier League for Nottingham Forest for 23 years, and well done to them, obviously, against my side. I think they did pretty well in the first half in terms of it was quite an end-to-end open game generally. I think both teams were defending a little bit last ditch, and Forest did particularly well, but coming away from it, like, you hit the bar twice. Declan Rice hits a shit penalty. The irony being that Lanzini and Scamacca were ready to come on as subs. And you're like, if you just make that sub 5 minutes earlier, it's Lanzini taking the penalty. He's the only player in our entire squad who seems to be able to take a penalty, because everyone else seems to want to miss them. And it might go in and it's 1-1. And obviously the disallowed goal with Antonio being body checked by Mangala. It was a difficult one to take as a West Ham. I feel like West Ham is still in pre-season, just not up to speed yet, still just finding rhythm. It doesn't help having Ben Johnson as centre-back. And again, unfortunately, it was his mistake that led to the goal, right? In the sense that he didn't clear the ball properly. It's a bit harsh to say mistake, but he didn't get his foot through the ball. And Awoniyi is there. That was my pronunciation, James. Awoniyi.
It certainly came off of his Awoniyi.
And he puts it in, right? So it's a difficult one to take as a West Ham fan. There was no signs of panic. Same against Man City. There was periods where it was all right. There's no signs of panic. But in the same way you talked about Wolves and the pressure building, we've now got Brighton at home, which is a difficult game. We lose that and we're on 0 from 3. You're like, come on, man. We need to actually start getting some points on the board and really wake up and shake up. But I do think having some centre-backs fit will be a bit of a game changer, because it's not comfortable at the back at the moment with Ben Johnson there as centre-back.
Yeah, fair. I only watched the first half of this kind of fleetingly. Shout out to one of our patrons, Giannis, who messaged me and said, what you doing in Belushi's in Shepherd's Bush, which I thought was quite weird. He was driving past and saw me going in. So I watched the first half. Yeah, small world. I watched the first half in there and I saw injury time queuing for a beer inside Stamford Bridge. I've obviously seen the highlights back last night. And
Henderson pulled off a couple of world.
Yeah, mate. I mean, those
Nico
two.
Williams on the line.
Those two that came off the bar and stuff as well, mate. I mean, you're talking half a foot and they bounce the underside of the bar and you score. And I mean, it's every chance you'd equalise. The pressure would have been too much for them. They won. Not a disaster. I'd be concerned about Forest's XG in terms of it being quite high as well as yours. But I think this was always going to be a difficult game with it being their,
I think it'll be their
first home game. We saw this with Brentford, Arsenal last year and stuff. It can happen, right?
Yeah. But I do think we need to, the good thing for West Ham point of view is that we've got Europa League on Thursday, which we should win that game. And if nothing else, it at least halts the momentum of defeats, right? So it's an easy game and you should win it. You win it and it's like, fine, at least we've got a win on the board for the season. It's like winning a League Cup game. At least it arrests the momentum.
Would you be better off losing it?
Well, what's the trade-off?
Well, you don't go in the Conference League and your season becomes easier.
No. Not at all.
No, I'm in complete agreement with you. I'm just asking.
No. And I don't know what Moyes will do with the team, to be honest with you. I think he's highly likely.
Well, people like Schumacher is going to get a start and stuff, isn't he? Yeah.
And even Cornet and Flynn Downs and a few of the new signings. So let's see. And I don't know how far away Dawson is, even, to be honest with you. So
well, you'd think it's good games to try and give these people a bit of fitness. I'm surprised that with the issues that you've had, that you've not played a back three with Cresswell and Johnson either side flanking the cat kicker. Because that Johnson is not a centre back in a back four, mate.
No, he's not a centre back. Yeah. He's not a centre back, full stop, man. Really.
No, but you can get away with it like you have done with Cresswell in a back three, right? You can do it like we've done it with Ben Davies and stuff. You can definitely do it, and I think that was the solution. And I was very surprised when I saw the team, and you hadn't gone back to that for the Forest game. So, considering we think that's probably the plan as well. That it's going to head towards a back three where Cornet might be used as a wing back, for example. I'm surprised that it didn't happen. But it's not a disaster. It's not a good result, obviously. For Forest, a few takeaways, which you can probably speak more of. Williams, obviously at 4.0. I mean, he's nearly scored a couple in the game, admittedly, the one shot from the edge of the box. But the chance he had on the back post, I mean, that's good. That's promising. That's where you want to see your wing back from a fantasy perspective. He's in that sort of position coming in on the back post. So I think that first goal for him is probably coming. The issue might be that with Tottenham and Manchester City in two of the next three, you might not be starting your guy much. But it's certainly, you've got the debate this week, I think, to think about whether you start Williams or Patterson. And I think it's close. I would probably start Patterson, but you could go with either. I mean, if suddenly you come up with a crisis this week, it's possibly a case to say just start both if you've got a crisis for some reason. Difficult to look at the rest of Forest squad at the moment in terms of FPL perspective, because I mean, they've got about another 4 new players going to be involved next weekend. So where does it sit? I don't know. I mean, you have more
and the fixtures like
about 6 forwards in the squad. I don't know what's going to happen.
2 of the next 3 being Tottenham and City. You don't want none of that.
No, I think if Nico Williams is not out the running for me in terms of rather than say going to Emerson tonight, I might go, I'm going to drop that into Williams or Patterson. My problem would be that if I go Williams, I've then booked myself into the position like you where I'm picking a Williams or Pereira. And if I make that move tonight without knowing where I'm at with Pereira and knowing that when actually the difficult fixtures like City's a midweek fixture, when I want the Josh De Silva, it might be when he gets rested and stuff. So it makes sense. I need to think about this sort of thing where I might end up playing Williams at a Man City. I don't want to be in that position, right? But if you've got, absolutely great. Henderson will be a decent 4.5.
Yeah.
I think we absolutely know
Good
that.
Performance.
But I can't make the case to pick him when you've got Williams sitting there at 4 million, exactly when we spoke to Mark in correspondent week.
Raya's fixture run is so much better.
Williams renders the others irrelevant from a defensive perspective. And I really don't know where we're at attacking wise in terms of what I think we know Lingard's first choice. he's not where I'd be diving into right now with Tottenham in 4 and Man City in 5. They do have 3 really nice fixtures from game week 6. Bournemouth at home, Leeds away, Fulham at home, where if you've kind of earmarked wildcarding in the international break, which is before 9, and I think looking at a Lingard for sort of that 3-game block, 6 to 8 or so, might be really good. But like where we stand with Brennan Johnson, for example, who took the disallowed goal really well, where we stand with him once you got like Dennis and Maupay involved and Awiyini scored and Surridge started last week. I don't know where we're at with that. I really don't know.
Before we get on to the refereeing controversies in the Chelsea Spurs game, let's just put to bed. What were your thoughts on the Antonio disallowed goal?
Foul.
Foul.
But no, I think it's probably the right decision. I've said the first couple of times I saw it, I thought, wow, he's been obstructed as well. I think
he's running and he's standing still. So the person standing still obstructs the person running. I don't get it.
I think the problem that he had was, and I agree, it was kind of half a dozen of one, half a dozen the other. I think the problem he had was that obviously he's running to go behind Mangala and try and get in behind, but he's not looking at the ball or anything. He's looking... But he's looking away from the ball, whereas you could make the case, and there's no way of knowing, you can make the case that Mangala's focused on the ball. And I think that's the problem. And the fact that once he got there, it wasn't like Antonio bounced off stiff to go, oh, I've been blocked. Antonio gave him the NFL push, mate. It's a foul.
Well, I don't know. For me, it's like when you're walking down the street, when you're walking down the street and someone on the pavement's walking towards you and you want to walk away from each other, but you accidentally both go in the same direction and then still end up hitting each other.
Do you end up pushing your man on the floor?
No, but then you're not trying to do that. But if he's running at full pelt, the only thing that's going to happen, if Antonio's running at you, I don't give a fuck who you are.
Have you ever been running for a bus and knocked someone over? Like, or anything like? No, you haven't, mate.
Well, I thought it was harsh because I don't think there's any way of saying that it's an intentional fact. Like they're both collided into each other. It just happens to be that.
What I would say is,
I don't think he would have got anywhere close to Declan Rice because he moved the ball away so quickly. But
if the goal had been given, I wouldn't have an issue with it. Is what I would say.
Yeah,
but I think he's probably the right decision.
Right. Let's skip this and move on to Chelsea 2, Spurs 2. And while we're on refereeing controversies, let's stay on refereeing controversies. People will want to know your opinion. Was Richarlison in Mendy's line of sight?
I think this is that one is a real 50-50.
I would say he was because the ball went so close to him.
The first one, I think where I can certainly understand Chelsea fans' anger is the Bentancur tackle earlier. He's definitely.
It was
Bentancur, wasn't it? I think
on
Havertz. Yeah,
it was Bentancur.
It's definitely a foul.
Yeah, 100%.
What I would say is that won't rule out the goal, but obviously the goal doesn't happen if that tackle's made. The reality is, I think it was about 45 seconds later in the move, and Chelsea had regained possession. In terms of they were in control of possession, so there's no way that tackle can be deemed from a VAR perspective to rule out the goal. Should it have been a foul at the time? Yeah, definitely. No question about it. Is Richarlison in his line of view? From my perspective, I don't think it should stand because I think it has to have an influence. That said, is he directly in his line by law? No, he can see the shot, but the shot comes across Richarlison's body if you want. And I was in the corner flag where Kane runs over to when we equalised. And when it happened, it was a shock when the ball hit the net. I thought, oh, Mendy's really slow to get down there. So just consciously, I think something's not right here. So you think it's come through, even from my perspective, I thought, wait, it's got to have come through bodies. Maybe it's taken a slight deflection. Perhaps I can't see.
Even skimmed off Richarlison. That's how close it was.
Because I felt like it was one I would have expected him to save. So consciously at the time, and obviously I ain't seen a replay till like last night, I'm thinking something about the goal didn't feel right. And I knew that at the time. That said, didn't stop me celebrating. I didn't think the goal was going to get disallowed. I was just surprised it didn't save it. If it had been chalked off, I wouldn't have an issue with that. I think this is one where you probably need a better interpretation of the law because, like I said, the interpretation of the law will be, could he see the shot? And that unquestionably is yes, he could. But Richarlison affected his dive. Therefore, I don't think it should stand. I think you are gaining an advantage and therefore this comes back to the whole touching the ball, not touching the ball. It's a murky area. I would prefer if you've got any form of physical involvement that impacts a defensive player and you are in an offside position, then it should be offside. The one I hate is like, oh, the defender tried to play it, and because he tried to play it, you can go through and score. Like, that's a disgusting rule, because if the player wasn't there, the player doesn't play the ball. So you gain an advantage by being offside. So I think generally that needs looking at. If it had been given offside, I don't have a problem with it. Next one.
Let's just rattle off the hair pulling.
It's a red card. There's no arguments.
Anthony Taylor can see it as well. It's bonkers.
He won't get done because VAR looked at it at the time. So VAR.
But what are they looking at?
Suj, I can't give you a defense other than just sit here and be honest with you.
It's mental, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a red card. What I don't where VAR needs looking at massively is, I feel like this is one the fans will get it. So you're looking at an incident where corner comes over and there was loads of bodies, but I think Dyer got the flick on. It was great save from Mendy. Ball's dead. You've stopped the game. The ball is dead, out of play. It's not like you've stopped mid-game. The game's dead anyway. You've said don't take the corner. You're looking at that. There is no impact on anyone for you to say the referee must be standing there. And this is where I have a little bit of sympathy for Anthony Taylor. So people can say, oh, and I know Chelsea fans, like, that's a whole other podcast, what they think of him and stuff. Fine, whatever. And it does look like he's looking at it, and you can't think, oh, why doesn't he give it? I can't give you an explanation. Is the honest truth. It does look like he's looking at it. But Anthony Taylor must be standing there on the pitch afterwards when he gets told in his ear, yeah, we're looking at a potential red card here for a Tottenham player. For the fact that the whole ground knows that the potentially, because they put it up on the screen, possible. Well, originally they put VAR check. Nobody knew what it was about. Then they put up our potential red card check. After the announcement, it came up and said, violent conduct, no foul, Romero. Something like that. I can't remember exactly. So it was only after they'd made the decision. I didn't know in the ground if they were checking for a penalty or what was going on. Yeah. Nobody knew. Again, communication in the stadium, fucking terrible. And that's Premier League's fault. So with that's really off-putting that Suj right just moved the camera. All I could see was his hand right on the camera.
I was trying to pull your hair, mate.
But the point is, the game is completely dead, and they're looking at it and saying, right, it's a possible red card offence against Tottenham player. So I'd love to know what that conversation is, where Mike Dean then says to Anthony Taylor, yeah, look, we've checked it. We don't think it's a red card. Just go with it for a minute. They've decided it's not a red card offence, but it's clearly an offence. So how that it cannot be allowed that they go, hang on, he's fouled him there. This should be a free kick to Chelsea. Like, I completely get where the anger is there. That's where the biggest anger of all should be, is that actually, by law, the referees are not given the power, even though they're looking at what they all know is a foul by a Tottenham player. They have no power to give a free kick to Chelsea unless they send the Tottenham player off. You know how ridiculous that is? It's absurd. It's absurd that we have to restrict and limit VAR so much. Because if they looked at it and went, let's just say everybody said, oh, do you know what? It's not a red card. But everybody goes, well, we've looked at it. It's definitely a foul. Give Chelsea the free kick. Do that. But the problem with that is then you have things where they'll say, so you have to check everything, yada, yada, yada. But this one's clear and obvious that you're actually checking for a serious offence. To then have Tottenham, morally it's wrong that Tottenham then take the corner. I can get that. I accept that. I also don't give a fuck. And for all the Chelsea people sliding in my DMs and tagging me, and I hope you're going to be honest tomorrow, there you go. I've done it. But yeah, I had a great party last night. I couldn't care less.
Celebrating draws, both draws like they will win.
I also had this as well. It shows you that what a small club you are that you celebrated a draw. Here we are. It's the celebration police are out again. Arsenal had all this last year, and I stood up for Arsenal and said, "You celebrate however you want." The reality is, my team got absolutely battered yesterday.
Yeah,
I do not care what the XG said, because I know I've seen the XG. I couldn't believe the XG stats when I saw it. It was quite close.
I think Kane's chance at the end must have had a fairly, because he's 1-on-1 in. Might have had a fairly decent XG.
What about like the Havertz miss, the Sterling miss in the second half and stuff?
Crazy.
No, Chelsea were a better team by an absolute mile.
I was really surprised, to be honest.
And we nicked a draw.
How good Chelsea were. They seemed to. I wasn't probably as aware as maybe you might have been prior to the game of your inferiority complex against Chelsea, because that's what it felt like. It felt like you were shadow boxing against them, where they were free to make 20, 30-yard passes. You can get them long balls to each other. And normally, if someone's making a long pass, you've got the time as a defender to step in and try and get in front of them. You just let them make these long passes to each other. They move the ball around so well. And it just felt like you can be critical of Spurs and say Spurs are not good, but Spurs didn't turn up and Spurs didn't play. Like you were a shadow team.
No,
there was just like an inferiority complex.
I disagree with a lot of this. I
think
actually
you could have put your foot in or made the attempt to stop them moving the ball around, but you just didn't feel like you wanted to make an effort to.
Easier said than done. So let's come into the more interesting stuff rather than referee stuff. Is tactically. So Tuchel won the tactical battle by an absolute mile, and his team benefited from that. What they did was obviously exactly what Gary Mantle had predicted, was that Rhys James was going to play wing centre back. But within possession phases, that transition that Rhys James basically became right back in a back four, and Loftus-Cheek went into a midfield area. And what this created was a box problem. One of the things I spoke to you about on the Patreon pod we did on Friday was about half spaces and how Mason Mount and Kai Havertz absolutely killed us, in the League Cup semi-final that we had at Stamford Bridge, where Chelsea played a 4-2-2-2. Which in possession yesterday is exactly what they went to. They just didn't do it from a starting 4-2-2-2. They did it from a starting 3-4-3, but transition. And it pulled Tottenham all over the place. And it meant that very often Højbjerg and Bentancur were outnumbered 4 versus 2. And that's where they had domination. Rhys James played as aggressive centre-back in the sense that he didn't overly have a position. So he was always coming out and pressing Kane or Son as soon as the ball went in. And it was a trigger. So quite often, what Tottenham will try and do is draw one out and then one picks up the space. I think it was really clever tactically that Chelsea had a designated man that was always going to be the one that went out and pressured. So it didn't mean you had 2 coming to the ball and then Son running in the space. It was Koulibaly and Silva are not going to go. Rhys James is going to take responsibility for this. What it meant was Tottenham's only outball in the first half particularly was Sessegnon over the top of Loftus-Cheek. And Tottenham did not cotton onto it quick enough. There was one ball from Kane to Sessegnon, which Mendy saved a shot from Sessegnon in the first half, went for a corner. But tactically, Chelsea was so much better. Pressure-wise, they didn't put any pressure on Eric Dyer at all. And it meant that numerically, when Tottenham were trying to play out, Chelsea always had a man advantage. When Højbjerg and Bentancur tried to come in alongside Dyer to see if that opened and pulled people out, Chelsea let them go. So then they had a 2-man numerical advantage and said to Tottenham, you can have it there. As soon as you come into any zones ahead of this, we're going to come and be aggressive and pressure you. And I thought tactically, it was absolutely outstanding from Tuchel. And Chelsea should have won the game. Literally, no doubt about it. I was so impressed with them. That said, the credit for my team is we do have this inferiority complex when we play them. And so therefore, it's to our credit that we stayed in the game, got something from it, and have every right to celebrate getting a shithouse draw in the 96th minute. It wouldn't have mattered if we were playing Chelsea away or fucking Nottingham Forest away. If you get a 96th minute equaliser, I'm going to go home.
Agreement.
Even if my team's been shit, I'm going to go and go, wow, it's a decent point, wasn't it?
100%.
For us, it's the worst away game as well. And we've got it out of the way. Yeah. We've shown we can do. The comment I made to one of the lads I was with yesterday, I thought about it more. I thought, yeah, you're spot on there, James, for a change, was Chelsea are the hardest team in this league to hurt. They're not the best team. City and Liverpool are stronger than them, but they're stronger than them because Chelsea will not score as many goals as City, Liverpool, and they don't dominate you in the same way that those other two teams do consistently enough, regularly enough. But when they've got everybody fit, they are the hardest team in this league to hurt. They drew too many games. It's why probably they won't be near Liverpool and City again this year, in my opinion, is A, won't score enough goals, or they won't have a player that will get a Kane or a Son total, and they'll draw too many games because of exactly that. But they're still a great team.
They were
tough. And on that basis yesterday, they should finish third.
And we give him credit whenever he plays well, which is pretty much every game. But I thought Kante,
well, the only thing to say is obviously limped off injured as well.
It was unfortunate to see him. It kind of pulled it. It was back of his lower hamstring or knee or something. It looked like on
which
TV,
is something potentially to watch. Right. Obviously, Kovacic is out at the moment as well. Chelsea, a little bit like yourself, Suj. Chelsea never don't turn up to play us, right? It's their biggest game. They're going to give it everything. That's always a difficulty for us because, unfortunately, it's not our biggest game. Arsenal is our biggest game. For Chelsea and yourselves, the biggest game is Tottenham. And that it just makes that fixture more difficult for us as well. Quality-wise, they are still better than us. But
Yeah, I didn't expect that.
We have the clutch players in Son and Kane who can win any game at any time. Chelsea don't have that. And that's why I think they'll be a little bit short.
I thought Cucurella at 5 million looked a really interesting option. I thought I liked his performance.
The only thing I'd say with him is, and we know this from with Brighton, that obviously if he's going to play, or even if he plays in the centre-back position, he will be a bit of a BPS magnet, I think. Very good on the ball, rarely gives it away. What I would say is if he plays left wing back more often, which we can't know because yesterday was very much a tactical setup specifically for Tottenham. If he does play there regularly, oh my God, get on Rhys James quick. Would be my take on that. Because they will unbalance the team to get him even higher. Whereas again, so imagine that transition yesterday where they've moved from a back three into a back four and James is the right back. Now imagine that when they do that in other games and James is starting from wing back and getting even higher and stuff. So I think it would create an imbalance where a little bit like the overload, and there were holes in Tottenham for the second goal because Conte had changed to a back four, and when James scored, Conte was quickly trying to change it back. Because I think we equalised, and our reaction in the ground was we're being shit, but we're going to try and win this. You know what we say about us? We will try and win the game, we just do it very differently to other teams. And I thought we're going to go for it, and he did, and he stayed with them 4 attackers on. But in those 5 minutes, Chelsea should have scored twice. And as he's trying to change it back to the back three, obviously James scored and they'd left Ben Davies so isolated. It was really bad from our perspective, but playing in part of the system we wouldn't normally. But that position of James, imagine that we playing other teams with a back four. If Chelsea can overload to the left side, play through it and switch it out, you get James one-on-one against anyone. You'd fancy him, wouldn't you?
Yeah.
So Rhys James, I think, is on radar. The only thing to say about him, like what I've been saying to you, is I've kind of wanted to wait in terms of deciding what to do with Chelsea players, because if a Fofana does join the club and is 4.5, then I think that's a real debate to say, is he worth the 1.5 more?
Yeah, but then
yes, he probably is, but then someone else is worth 1.5 more than somebody else somewhere else in your team, right?
Yeah.
So that's the only thing.
But you can double up, right? There's nothing to say you can't have two from the same team. Of course you can. And people sometimes don't like doing that.
And they've got good fixtures, Chelsea. Leeds, Leicester, Southampton, West Ham, Fulham, is with Leicester and West Ham being the 2 home games. There's nothing to actually fear in the next 5. Then there's Liverpool. We've spoken about it a lot, that actually on paper, Chelsea's easier games is the away game. The more difficult games on paper is the home games. If Chelsea wants to challenge City, Liverpool, they've got to stop drawing games like this, because they shouldn't have drawn yesterday. They deserve to win the football match. Finally, them 2 clowns at the end. I don't know if it was all for show, you know. With Tuchel and Conte, because they kind of like, have you seen Conte's Instagram last night and stuff?
Nah, about how don't really get on.
How like when Tuchel ran past him, Conte was bang out of order for Tottenham's first equaliser, by the way. Although I ever something feels like it must have happened to cause that to happen, but it's still unacceptable. I get that. Tuchel obviously runs past him for the second goal, the sort of thing Mourinho would do. And Conte put up a picture of it in his Instagram saying, if I'd have seen you coming, I'd have tripped you over. It would have been funny. And
I reckon.
And to be fair,
they probably shook hands.
Yeah, and to be fair, Tuchel was class in his press conference as well. Not so much the Anthony Taylor stuff. But when he was talking about Conte, he was smiling his head off a bit like, yeah, do you know what? We both care about our clubs. It got a bit heated, got a bit aggressive. It doesn't matter. It's finished. It was a game between 2 rivals, if you will. That's it. They've both taken it a bit too far on the pitch and stuff, I think. I don't know if they get suspended or what happens now. I mean, Tuchel's in trouble because of what he said about Anthony Taylor. I think just on that, all I'd say is, I know Chelsea fans think there's a massive problem with Taylor, but I think to go down the route of publicly saying it from the manager is probably not the right. Wrong. Yeah, because
but we'll get frustrated because you're
in an awkward position now.
And it doesn't, when the level of refereeing consistently shit across all the games, you're kind of like, there's football and then there's the lottery of what might happen with results as well. And it is frustrating. I really understand that.
I cannot accept, and I know it's been going on, and the problem is when Mourinho's your manager, Mourinho says things sticks in your head. It was Mourinho who first said there's a problem about Anthony Taylor and Chelsea years ago. So this is how far back we're going. The problem is then that it sticks and it gets people's in his head. I cannot for 1 second have that any referee is biased against a particular club. If you think Anthony Taylor's shit referee, fine, you think Anthony Taylor's a shit referee. And I think he got a lot of decisions wrong yesterday. I think the VAR ones, by the way, he needs help from upstairs where you can't necessarily blame. So it's not all on him. There were certain decisions just generally, I thought there were too many decisions in the game that he let go, which I think were fouls both ways during the game and stuff. But then, okay, the refs are trying to let things go and stuff. I can't have the bias against one club. If you think you're shit, sometimes we get certain referees and I think, oh, fuck, I don't want that referee. But it's because it will be things like, he stops the game too much or he doesn't come down on time wasting or things like that. But I never think a referee's biased against my team. Like people need to get that sort of thing out of their head as far as I'm concerned. I know those Chelsea fans are going to come for me because I said that. I don't really care. He's not biased against. You might think he's a shit referee. He's not biased against your club.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. I don't think they're biased, but I do think they're shit. And I do think certain referees have to end up being shitter in certain games. And it feels like it can build up that way. Yeah, I agree with you, James, on that for sure. Right, we've got one more game today, and we'll definitely cover that off in one of the pods that we do next week, maybe even 5 minutes on it tomorrow in the People's Poll, which is a segue, James, into you telling everybody what else they have to look forward to rest of this week.
Oh, wow. The People's Poll vote at time of recording is very close. You've got till 7:30 tonight. I've extended that. It's obviously 30-year anniversary of the formation of the Premier League. This particular week. So the People's Poll vote is up for tomorrow's podcast. You've got 3 choices. We can either pick a best ever Premier League 11 of players who have not won the Premier League. We can also, if you would prefer, pick a best ever Premier League team, but selecting only one player per club. And the third option is splitting the 30 years into half, picking a team from 92 to 07 and an 07 to 22, and debating which one would win. Those are your 3 options in the People's Poll. Sky Fantasy podcast on Wednesday. Thursday's Clash of the Correspondents is the Oil Derby between Newcastle and Manchester City with Simon Bibby and Johnny Pringle, which is also our 1000th podcast. And we will be celebrating such a feat on Friday's Planet FPL 1000 celebrations, which are technically up. I might just call it pod 1001. I don't know. So Patreon pods this week for intermediate and advanced tier patrons are Q&A today. Tomorrow's Money in Football, Suj. I've decided we're going to look at the Glazers because it just feels really topical at the moment.
Yeah, I was going to suggest that as well. Yeah.
Good. Wednesday, get researching on the Glazers and the debt they've saddled that club with and stuff. So Wednesday will be Tottenham. We'll talk a bit more about the emotion. There were some off-field positives, which I'm pleased to report, certainly from both sets of fans, I think, yesterday, which is good because there's been a need. When I went to Stamford Bridge in January, Tottenham fans were disgraceful. Yesterday, bar 1 or 2 dickheads, was much, much better. So I'm pleased to report that. Thursday, I'll do Ask James for the patrons. Friday will be our Game Week 3 preview. There's additional daily news content for advanced tier patrons, 5 minutes added on audio content for advanced tier patrons, and I got a few extras for them this week as well, including chip talk if I was on wildcard, and a little bit more from my away day experience at Stamford Bridge yesterday.
Tidy. I'm going to rattle through 2 or 3 questions, James, before we wrap this pod, and I'm going to obviously pick the ones that are a little bit more interesting than.
Was there any more Tottenham one? I didn't actually cover it.
Yeah,
I think Perisic will start.
I'm not even going to ask you.
No,
that's it.
No. I should.
He's got to. I mean, Sessegnon got hooked at like 50 minutes, 55.
No. So here's my opinion. So Sessegnon obviously got hooked early because Tottenham changed system. So as soon as I see Richarlison coming on, I said to my mate Rich, he's Sessegnon to take off. It's why he likes Davis so much as well, is that you can do that balance in one change, and it's natural and stuff. And it actually works particularly well with Emerson Royal. He's essentially a fullback rather than a wing back. So I have no clue. That I honestly think if it had been the other way around, he might have been taking off Perisic in that situation and making the same change. Now, obviously, in Perisic's case, if you go to 4 attacking players, you could play Perisic as the left wing. You play Perisic anywhere across a front 4 if you're going to go that way. But quite clearly, Conte realised once we'd equalised, okay, let's try and win it with these 4 attacking players. 5 minutes there, well, we can't do that. We're just getting exposed too badly. So I think the change was more about the system, and a lot's been made obviously about Perisic I mean, it is remarkable that he took a corner with his right foot on one side and it went out the other side and he goes and takes it with his left foot. I mean, how good are you in terms of your two-footed balance? Like we talk about Son being two-footed. Son would never take a corner with his left foot. I mean, it's remarkable. It's worth saying his second go was much better than his first go with his left foot. But I've seen a lot of, oh my God, Perisic on corners now as well. Stop. Sonny wasn't on the pitch. And Perisic is a weapon, right? So the first corner we had after Sonny went off, nobody went to take it originally. There was kind of a who's taking it. And because it was obviously not planned. Son's the corner taker. Perisic just seemed to take it upon himself that he was going to go. And obviously probably wasn't part of the in-box set piece plan, I would say. But I think if we get to the point where Perisic is starting and Sonny's playing, I would still expect Sonny to take the corners because Perisic being a box is a massive weapon in the air, right? So in terms of his physical taking corners, I wouldn't read too much into that as yet. I would be 50-50 on whether Perisic started on Saturday against Wolves. And I'm sorry that that's a real bottle job answer, but that's generally how I feel. I have no idea. I'd be very surprised if Emerson didn't play again at right wing back. If you ask me to say, go on, James, name one, my honest answer right now would be I don't think Ryan Sessegnon's done anything to deserve coming out of the team. And there was a key thing on Tottenham's own Twitter timeline yesterday, which you can go to about 3 minutes 45 of like a 5-minute video where Conte literally, and again, careful what you literally see with words, watch the words, where he says, this isn't the even Perisic I know. I hope I can get him back to what I know. So he's basically saying he's not in a state at the moment. So if you're asking me to say one way or the other, my instinct right now would be that Sessegnon still plays against Wolves. Once we get into that midweek fixtures and stuff, they're obviously going to share the minutes. So for me, Perisic is probably a no. But guess what? It's the 12:30 kickoff on Saturday. And if we're lucky like we were prior to game week 1, there's every chance we'll know by the time the deadline comes around. And if I know, I'll share with you.
Lovely jubbly, which means you need to make sure you're subscribed wherever you are listening to the podcast.
That ain't going to help.
Including YouTube.
Just follow Paul O'Keefe.
Yeah, exactly that. We're going to answer one question, James, before we wrap this episode. Amber Redmond. I would like to know how heavy the fourth official's board is. It always looks super light when held up, but perhaps they do a lot of strength training. I feel like they always have to get it with 2 hands. And
it looks really heavy.
It looks heavy.
Yeah,
I think it's pretty heavy.
Yeah, I agree.
But
yeah, I think it's heavy.
Yeah,
I don't think I could do it.
Like, I don't think they could lift it up with one hand, surely.
No, it's the sort of thing Antonio would do, though. Like, you do it as a goal celebration. Go over and just power lift it with like one hand.
It might well be. Listeners, hope you enjoyed this episode, and good luck if you have got players in the Liverpool game tomorrow. We'll be back at you tomorrow with the People's Poll. Make sure you get your votes in if you are listening to this before 7:30 UK time, and we'll speak to you.
By the way, if that poll is a draw, there'd be another snap one for like half hour. Every possibility looking at the vote, it might be.
Stay safe. Chat for now.
Thanks, everyone. Be nice to each other. Play it your way. Have a great week. Cue music, please, man. Show.